We'll do a review of the Sikha in Likutei Sichas Chelek Yutes, volume 19, the Sikha of Simchas Torah. This is actually the last Sikha, besides the Biurim and the Ger Tshuva, that follow, but the last Sikha for the regular Sichas, Simchas Torah. So in this Sikha, the Rebbe explains some of the expression that the previous Rebbe used, that on the Simchas Torah, the gates of light, the gates of blessing, the gates of success has opened. The Rebbe explains why specifically these three gates. The Rebbe goes through the specialty of Simchas Torah in the fact that it also has these three aspects in it. It is Yom Tov, it's the second day Yom Tov, and there is the custom of dancing with the Torah, which gives you the Keser Torah, and this corresponds to the three levels, as the Rebbe will explain it, but let's go step by step. Aleph. My father-in-law, the Rebbe, Simchas Torah Diker Sicha, he once said during a talk on Simchas Torah, that Simchas Torah seinen Tar in Pesichin, that on Simchas Torah the gates are open. And he said specifically which gates, as seinen offen the Share Oida, the gates of light are open, Share Bracha, the gates of blessings are open, and Share Atzlacha, the gates of success. And then he added, he says, Alle Shorim seinen offen, all gates are open. Und das nennt man mit Torah. How do you take all these gates? You take it, all these special blessing, the light, the blessing, the success, and all gates mit Torah through together with Torah. Torah brings you all these special open gates that come with the Torah. So Rebbe says there's something here that especially he mentions these three. He says later on, all gates are open. But yet in the beginning, he specifically chooses these three, Share Oira, Share Broch, Share Atzlacha. What is the significance? The words of our teachers, our leaders, they are accurate and specific, with total specific. In other words, what they use is very precise. Is von dem was the Rebbe is mefared b'yichud. So the fact that the Rebbe specifically details Share Oira, Share Brocha, and Share Atzlacha. Although, as immediately follows, he says, Alle Shorim seinen offen. All gates are open. Is muchach, it's evident as that Iker Oiftu for Simchas Torah, that the main novelty of the Simchas Torah, it was dan seinen offen die drei Shorim, but these three gates are open. That's the main. Darf man verstehen? So we need to understand what is the shaykhis miyuchedes from the drei Shorim to Torah. What is the specific connection of these three gates to Torah? Why specifically these three gates? And that's we get through the Simchas Torah through Torah. Not only that, the Rebbe is going to say it seems like Oira and Bracha come even before the Torah. It's not something which has to do with Simchas Torah. Nochmal, darf man verstehen. We have to understand this further. Says Yedua the Sheishis Yimei Bereishis eine Keneged the Shit Alfi Shnim. That the 6 days of creation correspond to the 1,000 years of the world existing. So the first day corresponds to the first 1,000 years. The second day of creation corresponds to the second 1,000 years, and so on. Is von dem was Bria Sa'ir is given by Yemarishon. Oir was created. When was the air created? On the first day. Far dem Yom Hashlishi was his Keneged dem El Hashlishi. That comes before the third day. First day before the third day. Which the first day comes before the third day, which represents the third 1,000 years, which is when the Torah was given. And in which the Torah was given. So the Torah was given basically on the third 1,000. That's like Tuesday, but at that point, Sunday, the already creation of world is Mukhrach L'chayra. So L'chayra, we have to say, as the Inyan for Shari Oira is not Behenik in Torah, that the gates of light is the hinge on Torah because it came on Sunday, which was before Tuesday, which is the corresponding to the time of the giving of the Torah, which is in the 3,000 years, which corresponds to Tuesday. And the same thing, we have a question, an issue with the gates of bracha. How are you connecting it to Torah? It's doch Yedua, it's known. As einer from the timing was the Torah Sichon mit a base. One of the reasons why the Torah starts with a base Bereshis is while base is Loshen Bracha, because base has the language of blessing. Is doch der Inyan from Bracha given gleich Bascholas Abriya. So this idea from Bracha was in the beginning of creation. That's Bereshis. Bereshis Bracha. If Avos sagt, so how can we say Ashare Bracha seine verbunden Davki mit Torah, that the gates of blessing are connected with Torah? Torah is Tuesday. Torah is Elef HaShlishi, corresponds to Tuesday. So why do we say the gates of Torah and Bracha are open? And the Rebbe explains now, it's not only that there was Torah and Bracha generally, but it was Torah and Bracha on the fullest capacity, because when Hashem created the world, He created it in its fullest. So why Epis Torah brings Torah and Bracha? The Shaila is not less. The question is even greater. The world was created in its fullest. So it turns out, as an Indian Abrocha was is Merumas in their base from Bereshis, that the idea of blessing, which is hinted in the letter base of Bereshis, is Shem Beis Abriya Givem B'Milua. So during creation, it was in its full capacity. The same thing is with the light, because this was created in its fullest capacity. It's not only the fullest capacity. We read that the light of Sheshet Me'Bereshit was so powerful that it actually, Hashem hid it later on. So it was a tremendous light. Is the light that was created on the Sunday, on the first day. It was without limitation. Kamayim Razal, our sages say, is as Adam Tzoifa Mabit Boy, that Adam would look and in the Torah, in the Oir, through the Oir that was at the first day, from the one end of the world to the other. Does haste. What does this mean? Need blois was the klolus hametzi von Oirom Bracha is nit tolidavk in Torah. Not only is the general existence of Oirom Bracha doesn't seem to be hinged on Torah, they came before, but even the highest level of Oirom Bracha, the Oirom Bracha is in betachlis hashlemus, but also Oirom Bracha as they are in complete wholesomeness, zayin and nitoli in Torah, not hinged in Torah. And Pravos Zokman. So why do we say as dos netman dafke mit Torah that you can take it only with Torah? It seems that we could have explained as the shleimus from the bria v'zi is mitzad atzma. That when we talk about the wholesomeness, that the world was created, the Meluya Nivra, that doesn't match up to the shleimus that comes to the Torah. And Torah brings a whole new level. As the shleimus in the bria is mitzad atzma, mitzad nivroim, that is from the perspective of the created being. Even when you take into consideration that it was at the highest level, that it was fully created in the highest level, is dos alt shleimus mit ha'agbola, it's still a wholesomeness with a limit, or b'meila need kein emes shleimus, it's not a true wholesomeness. The Father Zokmen, and that's why we say, as the Shari Oiro Shari Brocha, nemen davke mit Torah. When do you take the gates of Bracha and is with Torah? Because it's on a whole different dimension. We get the Torah now from this perspective that Hashem gives it to us, and that is a whole higher level, an unlimited level. Weil mit Eure und Bracha da meint man the emissary Eure und Bracha, because when we say Eure und Bracha, we mean the true light and blessing. Wie sie seinen Betachlis Hashlemus, as they are in their ultimate wholesomeness. Das heißt, wie sie seinen Mitzad dem Ebersten, as they are from the perspective of Hashem. The emissary Shalom, that is the true whole. Eberster is the complete Underiber Netmendos mit Torah. That's why you take it with Torah. Because when do we get the shlemus that Hashem gives through Torah? Because Torah breached the barrier between the upper and the lower, and we can get through Torah the greatest levels in Oira and Bracha. Malki Yedua, because as it's known, Matan Torah took down the partition between the upper and the lower one. Durch Torah then alle inyonim v'zeizayin mitzadem elye mitzadem beidem. And through Torah we take everything as they are from Hashem's perspective, the Creator. But their view is that masvik. That's not a sufficient answer. Rebbe tries to say that even though the word lechatchila was created with shleimus, but yet there's a whole nother shleimus that comes through when there is Torah breaks through the partition and we get the bracha and oira as it is from Hashem's perspective, which is the ultimate shalom, the whole. But that's not a good enough explanation. This is Aleph. The main is lacking from the Sefer. The Baal does the klolus inyan fun oira and bracha. Because since the general idea of Erev Bracha, and even to the extent that they were completely, they exist without Torah. If you were trying to say over here, oh, but you're getting the ultimate, so they should have emphasized, the Rebbe should have said, that through Torah, you take the light and the blessing as they are in the wholesomeness of the Creator, or similar to direct us to know we're not just talking about the ordinary Eira Bracha, even the Shlemus, talking about a special Shlemus, the Shlemus of Hashem. But B'chlal, the whole idea of Simchas Torah is really something which relates to the person's avodah. The reason why Simchas Torah is made on after Yom Kippur, which is the Luchas Shniyas, because that was the avodah Hatshuva. That is the avodah that comes from the people. So we're not talking here about shleimus of the Eibishter. So it should fit in more with the shleimus of the people. If we're talking about the shleimus mitzad Hashem, then should be Simchas Torah by Matan Torah, but not after Yom Kippur. Based. The time was menot kevei given Simchas Torah b'Yom Tov Sheni v'Shmini Atzeres. Unid b'Chag HaShavuos Ma'amat Dereseinu. The reason why we set up Simchas Torah on the second day Shmini Atzeres and not on Shavuos Ma'amat Torah is, well, the Simcha for Simchas Torah is verbunden with the Luchas Shniyah. The joy of Simchas Torah is tied to the second Luchas. Shenit Yom Kippurim, Yom Kippur, was a Zainen Kiflayim L'Teshiyah. They are double of this strength. That's why we have the Luchas Shniyas, we have Simchas Torah after Yom Kippur. As the Werter Don Netmen Torah. So when did the Rebbe say about that we're taking Torah? He's talking about taking Torah on the Simchas Torah, on after Yom Kippur, when there's really Simchas Torah, Kumam B'Hemshech, so Tchilas HaPiska, Simchas Torah Zayin Tarim Psikim, that Simchas Torah, the gates are open. So which he's talking about is moving up Loshen with Torah. So when he says you take with Torah, Meinter Torah, this is verbunden mit Simchas Torah. Torah as it's connected with Simchas Torah. Das heißt, mit der Meile von Torah, was ist zugekommen bei der Nesina von Luchas Shniyah, the advantage of Torah that came to us with the second Luchas. In that case, Afilu Eidman Zol Zogen. So even if we say as Mitshari Eiruchu Lamenta Dinyon Mizizani Mitzach Shlemis Habeira, even the Rebbe meant that you take the Shari Eira as it's Shlemis Habeira, is doch if them aspiki in Atoir Mitzad Luchas Rishonim, so then that would be sufficient. The first Luchas, what is it with the second Luchas that we're celebrating Simchas Torah that we get the Shari Eira and Shari Bracha? Avos Farbit Dos with Simchas Torah Davke. Why is it connected specifically with Simchas Torah? Oish Gimel. So the Rebbe is going to explain now that there are three aspects in Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah, the Yom Tov, the second day Yom Tov, and Simchas Torah, which is in addition more its own name, its own aspect. So we have three levels, and they correspond to the three levels of Eira, Bracha, and Hatzlacha, and the special renewal that is associated with it. Gimel. But when es verstehen behagdim, so we'll understand by introduce, but since Simchas Torah gefindt man drei inyonim, we find three matters, three aspects, was an endless to the drei shonim anal, which are similar to the three gates of Shari mentioned earlier: Shari Eira, Shari Bracha, and Shari Hatzlacha. So, what are the three things? So, first of all, we have the regular two things. The meaning for Yom Tov Sheni is that when we talk about the second day Yom Tov, which is Simchas Torah, there are two aspects. Aleph, Yom Tov Sheni, because it's a second Yom Tov, is that I'm a sub of an Hemshech Yom Tov Rishon. So he is a result and a continuation from the first Yom Tov. So it's second to the first. So that's the first aspect of it. Bay is the second thing, but in the second day, in Imkum Tzudar Ilui, in it comes the advantage for Arevim Olai Divrei Sofrim, that the words of the scribes are sweet. Azach was his Nitobi Yom Tov Rishon, something which does not exist on the first day Yom Tov. Azoi is dos by Yeder Yom Tov Sheni, so it is by every Yom Tov. You have the first day and the second day. The second day Midrabanon adds to the first day. So those are the two aspects. But as Simchas Torah, we have a third thing. Azoi is by Yeder Yom Tov Sheni. Simchas Torah kumt over zu adrita linyan. Over here, there is a third matter, a third aspect. Bigeret kam upon him. Has spoken many times. As from them, was says hot number from the fact that it has a separate name, Simchas Torah. We don't call it the last day of Sukkot or last day of Shmini Atzeres, or it's Simchas Torah, give it its own name. Is Muchach as a hot in Zich, that it has in itself noise of them was said is the Yom Tov Sheni the Shmini Atzeres. In addition to the fact that he's the second day of Shmini Atzeres, like every other Yom Tov Sheni, and he has that Rebbe Malai Divrei Sofrim, Oichan Eigenem Inyan, it has something in of itself, its own, that Inyan for Simchas Torah, the idea of Simchas Torah. Okay, Shemi by the Inyan for Yom Tov Sheni, and just like the general's second day Yom Tov, even though it's secondary, it's with the Rabbana, but it has an advantage. So here, in the Simchas Torah, the third aspect has advantage even over the Yom Tov Sheni. Shemi by the Inyan for Yom Tov Sheni. Just like by the idea of Yom Tov Sheni. Although that it's only from the Rabbon is Adrab. Is on the contrary, mitzad dem gufa faranim amayla of Yom Tov Rishon, there consists in it an advantage over the first day Yom Tov. Okay, now we said before that there is an advantage to the second day Yom Tov Sharevim, alai divrei sofrim yesim divrei Torah. It is sweeter upon me the words of the scribes, that means the second day Yom Tov, which is with Rabbanon, more than the words of Torah, so that's an advantage. And Simchas Torah, which is a minhag, is even a greater advantage. So likewise, by the third aspect, is although this is not even an obligation at all, it's not even the Rabbanon obligation. Even from the Rabbanon, it's not an obligation for Simchas Torah. She's not a minhag, this is only a tradition. Ukil Shein HaZoyar, as the Zohar says, the tradition, the custom is to make with the Torah a joy, this is Simchas Torah, and it's called Simchas Torah. So, while it is less of a command, but that's why there's actually a greater advantage. So for this itself is in Indo Amayla Nesefes, it has an additional advantage of the Erste Tzvei Yonim over the two first matters, aspects. As explained in many places, that a tradition that the Yidden have has a great advantage, in an Inyan suffering, which does not exist in something in a matter of Torah or a matter of Divrei Sofrim, just because it's a mitzvah. And Rebbe is going to say now that these three aspects, Torah, Rabbanon, Minhag, we find in Simchas Torah itself. These three above mentioned ideas, we find it within the Simchas Torah itself. From the nomen Simchas Torah, so we're talking about Torah, the joy of the Torah. Torah Stam, Simcha of Torah, Torah Stam is Muchach, that it's evident as the Simcha is verbunden mit Torah Bechlal, generally with Torah. Because Torah Bechlal is given with Luchas Rishonis. The Torah general was given with the first Luchas, Simcha of the Torah. Afal Pikein. Is Kidalil Sibbeis, as we said before Sibbeis. Here we're celebrating not just that, we're talking about the Luchas Shneis. The Tam of Simchas Torah is Nikba Gvar B'Shvina Atzeres. So we said before, why did the Simchas Torah been set up Shvina Atzeres? So need B'Chag HaShavuos, and not on Shavuos. While the Simcha from Simchas Torah is verbunden beiker with Luchas Shneis, because the Simcha Simchas Torah is mostly connected to the second Luchas. Because the Luchas Shneis seinen in Torah shebiksav gufa bedugmas divrei sofrim. So the second Luchas, when we relative to the Torah shebiksav, the written Torah, they're also bedugmas divrei sofrim. They're the second step. They are like similar to the divrei sofrim. When the inyan for Simchas Torah Gufa, and the idea of Simchas, that's the Torah. The Simchas Torah itself, those was Eden Machal Simchas Torah, is a Minhag Yisrael. That's a custom. As the Zohar says, the Noyagim lemebad Yisrael limached v'achulu. The tradition is it's a custom to make a joy. When I use as a Minhag Yisrael the line to Hecher from Torah, and since a tradition that the Yidden have reaches higher than Torah, unafilu from Divrei Sofrim, even from the words of the scribes, Kinal Siv Gimel, as we said before in Siv Gimel. The Farzog the Zohar, Behemshach to Noegim Chulu. That's why the Zohar says in follow to after Noegim, V'iskeriyas Simchas Torah, and we call it Simchas Torah. Then he adds the words Uma'atrin l'Sefer Torah b'keser delay. We crown the Sefer Torah with his crown. We surround it with the crown. We adorn the Sefer Torah with his crown. As noch dem und durch them, that after and through this, that that they make with her a joy. Machen a keser to Torah, they make a crown for Torah. Keser Torah is hecher for Torah, which is even higher than Torah. Afilu from Torah is mitzad luchas shnius, even the way Torah is from the second luchas, when divrei sofrim, now we have the crown of Torah, which comes through the minhag, through the celebration, through the simcha. Oishei, the beer was that. The explanation of this. Der Tam was the luchas shnius einen hecher for the luchas rishonis. The reason why the second tablets are higher than the first tablets, kiflayin l'tushiyah, twice to the strength, is because they came through the service of repentance of the Yidden. Yidden accomplished that. Und der Shoresh von Neshamas Yisrael is hecher from Torah, and the root of the Jewish soul is higher than Torah. Aber die Baal das euch the luchas shnius sind die gegeben worden milmailo. But still, the cause was the tshuva of Yidden. But once they did tshuva, they got it from above. It came from above. The avodas tshuva from Yidden, the service of tshuva Yidden is given as sibet to the nesiva sin of the luchas. That was the reason, a cause for the second luchas. But the luchas is gufa, but the luchas, second luchas themselves, they were given from above the luchas itself. So therefore, it's still from above. The ribers and an oiv the luchas shnias. Therefore, also the second luchas, an inyan from Torah, that's still an aspect of Torah, was neshamas Yisrael zayin hecher, that the souls were higher because it came from above and didn't come from a higher level than Torah, the source of neshamas Yisrael. Not in Torah gufa. In Torah itself, it's double the strength. Because they came through the Chuvin, but it's still not the ultimate strength of the Yidden themselves. As opposed to the tradition, the custom, for the Yidden to make a joy with the Torah, since the whole idea, it all comes from the Yidden, the far tut durch them, the Keser Torah. That's why that accomplishes the crown of Torah versus Hecher from Torah, which is higher than Torah, which even as it's double the Tushia, you get the higher level of the Keser of Torah. Both. Das ist euch die Scheiches zwischen Simchas Torah mit Shari Eure, Shari Brocha, Shari Atzlocha. Now we'll understand the connection between Simchas Torah with these three gates, Eure, Brocha, and Atzlocha, as we explained this, the three aspects of Torah, and the Divrei Sofri Minhag, and how this is a whole new level. Now we can explain these three languages that the Frierdiker Rebbe used, that the gates are open, Eure, Brocha, Atzlocha. But die drei inyonim, Anal the Simchas Torah. Because these three aspects of Simchas Torah, which is, what are the three again? Torah b'chlal, Torah in general, Milas Luchas Shniyos, the advantage of the second Luchas, and their minhag, Lameved Yisroelim B'chedva, and this tradition for Yidden to make a joy with the Torah. So in Bedugmas, Oira, Bracha, and Atzlacha, they're similar to light, blessing, and Atzlacha. What's the chilek? The chilek between Oira and Bracha. What's the difference between light and blessing? The pashtusis. Simply, what's the difference? Shas men benstein, and we do a bracha, you bless, is men oisen dem mizbarach. Then you intend what is you have in mind is the one who's blessed, being blessed. As erzol bakumen dem teuchen habracha, that he should receive the contents of the blessing. Und haben davon hat is going to have a benefit. So it considers what the recipient is, and you bless him to give him what he needs, the benefit. Schenken oir, when we say light, is verbunden nicht mit der Teil Samakabel. That is not associated, it's not tied to the recipient, nor mit dem Teva HaMoed. If there is a luminary, it lights. It should be lighting. Because the far, and that's why, because it's not tied to the Makabel. What is the definition of light? It goes automatically. Go to a specific. Nochmer. Shimsha Kula Alman Eichel says, son, rest of the whole world. It shines over the place of the dirt. There's still light over there. In the roof is there's no benefit for the shemesh over there. Because it's not associated, not directed towards the recipient. It's the moir giving off the light versus bracha, where you're taking into account the recipient. This is the shayches zwischen luchas rishonos, luchas shniyos, and this is the association, the connection between the first luchas and the second luchas, mit share oire and share bracha, with the gates of oire and bracha. By the nesina for luchas rishonos, when the first luchas were given is given that goshe beikir. Over there, the main emphasis was the nesina milmailo, the giving from above. Nit azoid has goshe as iden zoln frier vern ashemeya omevin. It wasn't the emphasis that the Yidden should first become listening and understanding, or makabel and recipient, umisached beyichud nifla, and to unite with a wondrous connection. It wasn't the prerequisite, as when one understands. So there wasn't a prerequisite that with the Torah the person should become a recipient. It wasn't that. It was the river, and therefore is bepoilot as eden mitzadzer matzachulu. So therefore, in actuality, because of the condition of the Yidden, Shas Matan Torah b'Chag HaShavuos, when it was the time of Matan Torah and Shavuos, the Torah is they did not really grasp it and they didn't absorb it. Umitzadem zayin the luchas harishonos, and because of that, the four luchas are similar. There was a shine, a light. In oil, because the emphasis when we talk about light is kinalas before, those was their moed is made just that the luminary shines. Anders the luchas nis, but it's different with the second luchas. Their giving came through the service of Yid. So the repentance of the Yid, this has brought out, so to speak, above, as menzol zei geben the luchas. They should be given the luchas. They are now the focus. This haste that Goshe is, the emphasis is in zei, is as Yidden zol makabel v'kol zayin the Torah. That Yidden should receive and absorb the Torah. Betam zeh zayin in the luchas shnius. And for that reason, the second luchas verbunden tied with Sharei Brocha, with the gates of blessing. With the Adgoshi Zoy from his Baruch. Over there, the emphasis is on the one who's being blessed as Zol Makum and the Brocha, that he should receive the blessing. We know that the end of the action is first in thought. As the Kabbalah Pnimis in Amshachas Ha'oris, that the inner intent, why is the light coming down? As is on the skabel, that it should be received, it should be captured, it should unite, it should fuse in the kelim. That's why the second luchas are higher than the first luchas kiflaim l'tushir. They're double, because the ultimate goal and the ultimate intent is for it to be absorbed by the makabel, and therefore it is doubled by the luchas shnius when it came through the avodas hatshuvah. And now the Rebbe is going to explain what the third in the Hatzloche as associated with the Keser Torah, with the level, with the third level, Zayin. That Pnimius HaPirush in Soif Ma'aseh B'Machshavat Tchila, the inner interpretation, when we say that the end of the action wasn't thought in the beginning, is nit as dos was not gewollt with Tchilas HaMachshav. It's not just, the simple meaning means, it's not just that what you wanted in the beginning, what you had in mind, that it comes in the end of the doing. So the first thought comes in the end. It actually is a higher level than that. What's beyond the thought comes out more. Not as there's soifas kumtarois der asiya. What ends up coming out from what you did, la'achre asiya. Soif maaseh doesn't mean the act, the premise, doesn't mean what happens at the end when you do it, but what happens as a result of the maaseh. Was kumtarois funder asiya, la'achre asiya. That the line that reaches in Techila, not what you first saw, but in the beginning of the thought, was his koidem hamachshav, before the machshav. Oich fardam onim from the machshav, also what preceded before the beginning of the machshav. We mezog the dogma of them, as we the example that is given for this is funan umen was nemt sich ton amalocha, a craftsman who is starting to do a job. Und die Melochi is arush gekommen betachlis hatoy beyesu b'derech hatzlocha. The job came out ultimately so good in a successful way. Is nicht der Pshat. It doesn't mean as der Umen hat sich lechatchila gericht. Doesn't mean that the craftsman had originally expected. As the Melacha V'Tarus Kumaderach Hatzlacha, that the work is going to come out in a successful way. But das kann man nicht wissen. You can't know that. Kennt sich nur ohne mit zu tun die Melacha. He can only accept. He's going to do the work based on the best ability of his craft, the way he knows how to do it. Und der Faris das was the Melacha is gekommen. And therefore, that the fact that the work did turn out noch mehr wird zu Gericht mit Chilsa Machshava, even more than he had expected in the beginning of the thought, b'derech hatzlocha, the length in Bechinas Tchila, that reaches in the level of Tchila shelifnei Tchilas HaMachshava, which comes before the beginning of the Machshava. Ches, al derech zeh is der inyan from Kaviyachol hatzlocha l'mayla. Similar is also when we say Shari Hatzlocha. What is that Hatzlocha about? So Hatzlocha below in the success is a result that comes as evolves from above. The dwelling place for Hashem blessed that Yidden accomplish through their service is betachlis hatoy b'yosef b'derech hatzlacha. There, it's an ultimate, very good in a successful way. Noch beser kaviyochel, that is better, so to speak. This is the rotzim b'tchilas hamachshava than Hashem's will in the beginning of the thought. Hagam as is poshu. Although it's obvious, as does gufa, that this itself, as the dira zol zayin betachlis hatoy b'yosef chulu, that the dwelling place should be the ultimate very good is the kavanah somebody is b'tchila that is originally the tchila. What are we saying before the tchila? Das is over the b'china tchila velches hechef machshava. That's the level of tchila which is higher than thought. It's not the tchilas of machshava. It's a tchila which comes before machshava. The Bir and the Miktzora Kaponim, to explain this at least briefly, shortly, in short. The tachlis hakavona is as Eden zol machen the dile betachtonim durch zeir egen avodah. The ultimate intent is that Yidden should create and make this dwelling place in the lower through their own work effort. Avodah b'koyach atzmo, work with their own power. Bald as the rotzin oif oilomes. Since Hashem want for the world, which includes also the beginning of Machshava. To the Bria in here is connected to the creation and impacts it. The Riber is the Kavona, so therefore this intent for Nisava Kodesh Baruch Hu that he wants to be Dir Tachtoinim, durch der Avodah von Eden Ganzem Kirch Atzma, so that they do it with their own strength. Nicht darauf getrogen geworden in Tchilas HaMachshava von der Bria, that has not been descended, it wasn't brought down in that first thought in the beginning of creation, nor is from Lim Be'elam, that remain obscure in Bechinas Tchila in the level of the beginning, was his Hecher from Tchilas HaMachshava, which is higher than the beginning of the thought. Azoi, as the Kavona poiled nit lemata, in such a way that that intent does not impact below, the Direle is border by Torah in Gansen, and the dwelling place for him blessed is accomplished totally through the Avodah from Eden from their own koyach. So that aspect, all of the world has the point of making a Direle Yisborach, but that part that the Dira is done with the Yid's own koyches, with his own self, that is something that remains obscure, that only gets in higher level high machshava. When the mit is move on, and with this we understand that those was in noise the tachlis hakavona. So there we understand when Yidden accomplish the ultimate kavona for nisava kodesh baruch hu liyas lo yizbarach diru b'tachtoinim. The ultimate intent of Hashem want to be a diru b'tachtoinim is as in an oifum von hatzlocha. Then that is considered success. A yois as odi kavona is hecher von zu nimshach werden in Rotzen Hagoli of Elohim, since this intent is higher than being able to extend in the open will on the world. That's what we call that successive. We call it higher than machshava. We say in previous the machshava. This is a hard concept, but it's something where you got to go over. Test. Apal P as the dida was in the Shabbat Mekoich Atzmo. That the dwelling place that Yidden create with their own power, but durch der Aveda, from Kolam Torah Mitzvahs B'chol Proteim, through the service of all of Torah Mitzvahs and all the detail. Status the Gilui, but when is it open? When it is Zemekayim Nit Mitzad Tamchol, when he fulfills it without, not because there's a reason, nor Mitzad Dem was Vitzivonu, but just because he's commanded. Nit Mitzad der Zgula was Idov B'kiyum Tziva Mitzvah, not because of the special specialty that you have when you fulfill the mitzvah. And just the command, doing the command. When you can see that you're doing it just as a command, not with any reason. As the known languages, it doesn't matter what Hashem would tell us, even if He just told us to go chop wood. So also, when we talk about traditions that we didn't practice, since there is no command, so therefore they come totally from the power of Yidden themselves. This haste, that means the Rotzena Elyon, as Yidden soll mekayim sein dem Minhagi Yisrael, Hashem's will that Yidden should fulfill the Jewish customs. Sein dem Minhagi Yisrael is verblieben noch mehr behelem wie der Rotzen of Torah Mitzvahs B'chlal. That remained more obscure, more hidden than the general desire for Torah Mitzvahs. These, as of Zeis Afilik and Sivunito, to the extent that there's no command on them. Thus is the Bir V'derech Efsher. And that's the possible explanation. Was Durchun Minag L'Meved Yisrael L'Machedva. Through the custom to make a joy with the Torah. Is when there noch ma'atron the Sefer Torah because of the delay, then you adorn the Sefer Torah with his crown. Was der Keser Torah is hecher from Torah. The crown of Torah is higher than Torah. Even as it is from the perspective of the second luchas. The luchas shniyos, the second luchas. Afal pi as in zei is ikir hagosha, oiv kabbalas haluchas va Torah. Even though the main emphasis is about receiving luchas of Torah mitzad Yidden from the perspective of the Yidden kinal siva from deswegen, but yet the baldas is einige gegeben geworden mit Milo since they were given from above. Ubedugmas habrocha, similar to the brocha, but sagam is their mit oisen the tells from his barach. Although that you are intending the benefit of the blessed, of the one who's being blessed, which is the advantage over oil, but yet it still comes from the one who is blessing, so it comes from above. Like the luchas came through tshuva, but they came from Hashem. So as they noch als nicht in der beginning von Sif Meise, they're still not the end of the action, the result of a mele where durch sei nishlam blois the kavanah. So through them, it's only completed the intent. This is nimshach gvorim b'tchilas hamachshava, as it has been extended in the beginning of thought. Through this, that the Yidden are accustomed to make a joy, to freizach with the Torah, to rejoice with the Torah, shoin noch the nesinas haTorah milmaylo. That is already after the Torah was given from above, is as a medugma to minyan hatzlacha. That is similar to the idea of success. Because it's not davki in soif ma'aser. That is specifically in the end, after shula achras here, which after the doing, but does the length that reaches in the kavana from tchila in the intent of the beginning, because it's hecher from tchila samachshava, which is beyond the beginning of the thought. The minhag the joy with the Torah reaches into the level that precedes, that's the atzloch of the end of the action, and it reaches to the higher than the level of the machshav. Yud. So based on all the above, the question that we asked, the Sipal becomes even greater. Bald as the Reif to Simchas Torah is that in von Hatzlocha, Simchas Torah accomplishes that its success. Und der Inyan von Euro und Bracha, and the idea of Bracha seine Doich bei Luchas Rishon Shavuos, bei Luchas Hashnis Yom Kippur, was wird gesagt in der Sicha? So why does the Sicha say, as Euch Shari Euro und Shari Bracha, that also Euro und Bracha seine verbunden mit Simchas Torah Davke? Why would they be connected with Simchas Torah? But when es verstehen behagdim, we'll understand this by introducing was man gefindt, that we find as dur der avoide velimud kideboy, when you, the proper service of studying, your gaita, putting in effort, von Eden wird in Torah, that adds to Torah. These, as medach mechadish zayin b'Torah, that you have to come up with novelties in Torah, la foshalo, to increase the Torah. Similar to it is by the Jewish custom, the customs by the Minhag Yisrael Torah. Once it becomes a minhag, it becomes a new Torah. It becomes Torah. So it turns out, as durch them, was in vielen einer minhag, that when they introduce and bring in a new custom, kommt zu Torah. Yeah, and Torah. So v'lechera, it seems hein emes amitzadem was the shoyresh from Shamas Yisrael is hecher from Torah. Let it be that because the root of the soul of Israel is higher than Torah, kemen verstehen, so you can understand as we Eden can after the 90 in Torah, we can understand how could the Eden accomplish something new in Torah. So aber noch halt nicht moving, but it's still not understood. Also wird oder Inyan. How does this idea, this new idea, especially that which they come up with through their minhag, how does it become a part of Torah? Who says, not only are we obligated to do these decrees and what was institutions and the customs, but the Chachomim, when that was renewed, came about by the Chachomim, there's a very achelik from Torah, they become part of Torah. As before mentioned, the language is in Benegates, in Hagi Yisrael, as it relates to the customs of Yidden. Apilu Benegates in Hagim was an nit verbunden with based in Hagadol. Even those traditions that are not associated with the great Bezdin, as Minhag Yisrael Torah, every Minhag of Yidden becomes a Torah. How does it incorporate and make it into Torah? Not just that you have to do it, but it becomes Torah. Is there beer in them? So the explanation is that in Torah is eine Veran zwei beginners. In Torah there are two levels. Alle wie Torah is Chochmos to the Tzeni Yisbarach. The way Torah is Hashem's wisdom and will, blessed will and wisdom. From this aspect of Chochmah Rotzen is Torah ausgestellt azoi. So the Torah has been set up in such a way as a seine Veran in Yonim as werden es chadish. There's such items that become renewed. The Yidden bring in that new parts of Torah. Based, those but the part of Torah where Hashem and Torah is one, the Torah is mushish in atzmusis, but Torah is rooted in the essence blessed. From that level, the new idea of Torah can become a part of Torah, as the Rebbe will explain. As the Kavone Hel Yoine is as Yidden Zol Mechadish Zayin in Torah, since the supreme intent that Yidden should come up a new novelty in Torah with their own strength, that expresses, brings out their root in the Atzmos, that they can bring new things in Torah, that even of them be Yidden. Therefore, after the Yidden come up and renew an idea, they bring down, the impact to bring down Atzmus tun sie auf dem Shocher euch in Torah. Then they also accomplish this, that they draw down that in Torah itself. Adarab steht in Sefer Haboyer, similar to what is stated in the Sefer Haboyer, as David would connect Torah with Hashem. Und der Riber wird der Chidush. And therefore that novelty. Which novelty we're talking about? Saidi Chidush was in learning up from Torah the Gaita. Both, whether it's the novelties that the Yidden learn out from Torah through their effort. When Euch HaGzeres Vatakonis and Usvam and Hogis, the decrees and what they instituted and the custom was in Zayn Machadish, that becomes a part in Torah. So based on this, we also it's understood was in der Sicha now, that what the Sicha says is nit nor Shari Atzlacha. Not only the gates of success, which is directly associated with Simchas Torah, they also have a connection. The gates of light and blessing have a connection with Simchas Torah. That is accomplished with Hagam as Oiram Brochas and Fanat Oichem Torah V'Zid Mitzadatzma. Even though Oiram Brocha is there, also the Torah is by itself. A mitzvah inyan from Oira is as is made in Begili. Also, true Oira is that openly revealed is everything that it is in the luminary comes out revealed. Also, that parts which in of itself are higher than revelation. Same thing by blessing. Bal, as a mitzvah inyan Torah is dos was in Eisem Kuchuk Kulachad. The real aspect of Torah is that part where Torah and Hashem is one, Kultois. So it turns out that Davke, the Simchas Torah, when Eden Zainem Atem Sefer Torah B'Chesed Eloi, when Eden adorned the Sefer Torah with his crown, Zainem Mamshech Magala the B'Shodesh Torah, and they draw down and they reveal the root of Torah. The Torah is Mushrish and Atzmusis Baruch. Torah is rooted in the essence, blessed essence. Tafke damult kumte de gilui. Then comes to revealed zusammen mit the Shari Atzlocha, together with the gates of success. Euch the Shari Euro Shari Brocha B'Tachas Shleimus, also the gate of Euro and Brocha B'Tachas Shleimus, because that is the time when we get the Reis of Kutsha B'Rich Kulachad, and we get everything then. So also the Euro and the Brocha are B'Tachas Shleimus. This is the Simchas Yom Simchas Torah Tovshin Lamed.